special guests that I'm going to introduce in a minute that also represent organizations based in this community. But we're not just here from across different communities, different organizations. We're here from different neighborhoods as well. So make some noise if you're from Liberty City. If you represent Little Haiti. I know we got a few folks from Little Havana in the room tonight. A couple of folks from Hialeah here tonight. As we speak, forums have either taken place or are being planned that are similar to this in Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, and West Palm Beach. Because we're not just trying to make a better Miami-Dade, we're trying to make a better Florida. And you all are a part of this new movement. So give yourselves a round of applause. So as we saw from the video, one thing that we know we're good at is taking it to the streets. Raise your hand here if you'd like to take it to the streets.
All right.
So we know how to yell, we know how to protest, we know how to sit in, we know how to camp in, we know how to make it known when we're upset, we know how to make it known when we want something and how we want it. But there's another thing that we know how to do really well. And that's take the time to think about, why are we protesting? What does accountability mean to us? When we say we want justice, we take the time to think about what does justice look like. And we take the time to think about who are the people that can represent us to get that justice. And that's why we're here tonight. That's the purpose of these freedom forums. Because before we take it to the streets, we gotta take a step back and say, what do we want? And we gotta go to the people that are vying for our votes, and we gotta tell them what we want. And then if they mess up, then we take it to the streets. So tonight, we're gonna have a community conversation about a very important race. And that race is the state attorney's race here in Miami-Dade County. Now, what we had originally hoped to have was a candidate debate between the two primary candidates, who are Rod Vereen and the current incumbent, Kathy Fernandez-Rundle. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get both candidates here tonight. Ms. Rundle had an engagement that was on her calendar prior to the scheduling of this. Hold on a second. Remember how I said tonight we were going to take a step back, engage in civil conversation?
Nope.
I'm going to need y'all to back me up on this. We got plenty of time to boo and hiss and take it to the streets, right?
Nope.
But tonight we're going to have to switch up the format a little bit. We are going to acknowledge Rod Vereen, who did come out tonight, and we're going to give him a chance to introduce himself and explain why he's running for office. And then instead of having a candidate debate, we're going to have a community conversation about what's at stake for our communities. Why even care about this race? Because the state attorney's race isn't usually the big one that's in the newspapers, the big one that gets all the coverage, but it impacts every one of us. It impacts all the issues that we work on. So tonight we're going to have a conversation about, why should we care? Why should we get involved? Y'all down with that? Yeah? All right, cool. So first off, I want to make sure everybody got a copy of this. The Florida Freedom Charter. It's either on the flyer or we have big versions in Creole and Spanish. This charter is the guiding vision of what brings us together. This whole Freedom Forum, this new movement that we're building is defined by the principles outlined in this Freedom Charter. So if you haven't, please take a chance to read it. And specifically as it relates to the race that we're going to talk about tonight, two of the main issues that are outlined on here deal with, how does the legal system impact us? How are we able to participate in our democracy or not? Who is a legal human being and who is not? That's what's at stake in this race, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So before I introduce you to our panelists, I want to bring up Rod Vereen, candidate for state attorney. He's going to address us, and then once we get into the community conversation, he's going to have the opportunity to say a little bit more.
Let me start off by saying good evening. Good evening. I think he went around and noticed different nationalities in here, so let me also say bonsoir. Buenas noches. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Ladies and gentlemen, let me first start off by introducing myself. My name is Rod Vereen. I want to tell you a little bit about myself before I sit down and take part in this community forum. I am running for the office of state attorney. And as was just stated, this is not normally a race that garners as much attention as it has. And I think you all really need to understand why it is that it is garnering so much attention. This is a historical race. If you have not been reading the newspapers, then you're missing a part of history that's taken place in Miami-Dade County. So let me give you a brief background of what is going on and why it is that this is historical. My opponent, who thought it not respectful enough to come out here and address you all this evening, I too had 100 things I could have been doing tonight. But you all are part of the community, which I want to make sure is just as safe as any other community. And I thought it not robbery to come out here and address you all tonight, so you will have an opportunity to see who I am, hear what I have to say about the office of the state attorney. For the past 20 years, my opponent has sat in the seat as the state attorney without any Democratic opposition whatsoever. That means when every time there was an election, no Democrat ever challenged her for that seat, no matter how good or how bad of a job she was doing. There were Republican challengers, but because of the makeup of Miami-Dade County, the fact that there are more Democrats than Republicans, when it's time to vote, if you're a true Democrat, you vote the Democratic ticket. If you're a Republican, you vote the Republican ticket, and every single time, she would win. See, there's a side of politics that a lot of folks who are not engaged in politics don't know about, and it's all about numbers. And so when people tell you, oh, I'm not going to vote because my vote won't mean anything because it's just one vote amongst many, trust me, your vote counts. Votes win races. There are 67 counties in in the state of Florida. 67. Here's the historical lesson. There has never been an African American state attorney in any of them since the inception of the state of Florida. Miami-Dade County has the opportunity to elect the first, me. That's why it's historic. That's why it's historic. What happened in this race, and for those who have been reading the newspapers, that this is the only race out of all countywide races that is only going to be decided by the Democrats, because the election is closed off from Republicans and Independents because of the write-in candidates. The way it is because it is a bipartisan seat, or should I say partisan seat. Democrats, if they want to run a candidate, have to select a candidate. Republicans, if they want to run a candidate, they have to select a Republican. For the past 20 years, the Democrats never picked anybody. No other attorney wanted to run for that seat other than Kathy Runnels, so she had no opposition. So she won it every single time. But now that the polls, should I say, now that the election is closed off, to where only Democrats can vote, my opponent went to her website and said, my opponent, meaning me, used a legal loophole that's been used many, many years by both the Republicans and the Democrats in every election going all the way up the state of Florida, from Miami to Pensacola. In every single race, is constantly used. And she accuses me of using that to close off and deprive, and as she will put it, disenfranchise Republicans and Independents from being able to vote in the race. And then what she says is that, listen, you have until July the 16th to change your party affiliation. She's now telling Republicans and independents, go register as a Democrat and then vote her in again. But then she takes it another step. She says, this does not obligate you to vote for anyone else in the general election. Don't vote for Barack Obama. Don't vote for any other Democrat, Frederica Wilson, or anybody else that's in the general election, because you're really a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that is what's happened now to the Democratic Party. Well, let me tell you, there's another thing that happened, and this is what's going on right now. Two of her supporters, Mazzilli and LaCasa, got with the former U.S. Attorney, Bob Martinez, who now works for Colson Hicks. And they went and filed a federal lawsuit in Broward County, demanding that Republicans and independents be allowed to vote in this election because she knows she can't win without their support. That is what's taking place now. Judge Locke, who is presiding over the case, dismissed the case without prejudice because he said, in order for you to sue, you must include the state of Florida. So you have to sue the Secretary of State, and you must also include the Division of Elections. So you have to include the State Election Canvassing Commission. So now he has given them until the 17th of July to file the lawsuit, adding those parties. He has given those two parties until today to file their answer, and he's going to hear the case again on the 23rd. But let me just tell you this. I got one word for that lawsuit. Frivolous. Frivolous. Democrats cannot choose who the Republican nominee could be in any race, and the Republicans cannot choose who your Democratic nominee will be in any race. That is just a ploy. She is hoping that Judge Locke goes back and read what Katherine Harris said back when she first rendered her first opinion, saying, hey, as a supervisor of elections, I'm telling you that write-in candidates are legitimate opponents. They're making the argument to the court that these write-ins aren't even campaigning. Well, write-ins don't need a campaign until after they see who they're going to be running against. And then in the general election, then you can decide whether you want the write-in candidate or whoever was the nominee for this particular seat. So you have to see what's going on with regard to the political side of this office to understand what's going on inside this office. As citizens of Miami-Dade County, you all are entitled to have a prosecutor in that office that is a true prosecutor, not a politician. To tell you a little bit about myself, so you'll understand what I bring to this table that my opponent does not have, other than saying that she's been in this seat for 19 years. I grew up first of all, I was born in Germany. My father was in the United States Army. Served 22 years in the Army, he's now passed. My mother's a nurse. She's been a nurse for over 40 years, and she currently teaches nursing over at Miami Lakes Technical Center. But I came to the United States when I was 8 years old. Grew up in Carroll City before it became Miami Gardens. Graduated from Miami Carroll City Senior High. Attended Florida State University, where I obtained a BS degree in criminology. I then went to Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I obtained a law degree, a Juris Doctor degree. But I was also law review, which means you're top of the class, and moot court, which means you're a very good oralist, oral arguments before the courts of appeals and Supreme Court judges. After graduating from law school, I returned back to Tallahassee, where I became an adjunct professor at Florida State University, teaching in the School of Criminology. I also became an adjunct professor at Florida A&M University, teaching in the School of Criminal Justice. And I was also an assistant state attorney in Tallahassee at the same time, prosecuting cases. So that's where I first started getting my likeness and appetite for the courts, being inside of one, teaching students about the system. After a few years of that, I became the first African-American assistant federal public defender for the Northern District of Florida in Pensacola. That means I was representing individuals in the federal court system that could not afford attorneys. Handled many high-profile cases in Pensacola, but decided that I had enough and I wanted to come back to the town and city that I loved the most, which was Miami-Dade County. You know, when you were growing up, and some of you, it's probably still young, but those of you who are my age and are older and have gray hair now like I do, you recall when you were going through college and your parents were telling you, listen now, don't go and get yourself educated and not come back to the town you grew up in. Don't go make somebody else's city better. Come back to Miami-Dade County, make Miami-Dade County better. Well, that's what I did in 1995. And I came back here and I set up a practice in federal criminal, state criminal, federal civil tort litigation, and civil rights. And so I started handling those type of cases. So for the past 22 years, I've been inside of a courtroom. Inside of a courtroom. Every single day I wake up and go to work, I go inside of a courtroom. Representing the individuals from Miami-Dade County, all across this country. Trying cases, either as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. Trying cases, understanding the problems that occur within our communities, knowing where these problems are. My opponent has not been in the courtroom for the past 20 years. But she will stand here and she will tell you that crime is now down in Miami-Dade County. Crime is down. Miami-Dade County is safer than it's ever been. And she's put out some flyers to talk about the statistics of how crime has dropped. How crime has dropped. But I want to refer you all back to an article that came out in April of 2012 that talked about the crime statistics in Miami-Dade County from last year to this year. And it said murder. In Miami-Dade County, there were 218 murders in 2011. The highest in any city across the state. A drop of 6 from 2010. Rape in Miami-Dade County jumped from 638 to 638 from 537. So you're talking about 101 more in the year 2011 than was in 2010. But yet, Miami-Dade County is safer. Robberies in Miami-Dade County went from 5,958 in 2010 to 6,157 in 2011. That's 200 more. Every single time you turn on the television to watch the news, the first thing you get are the crime reports about the murders that take place. Double homicide, Southwest. Another body found in Southwest, another body found in Homestead. But yes, still the crime is dropping in Miami-Dade County? I say not. But that's, and let me just say this. Don't ever give the state attorney's office the credit for the crime dropping. They just prosecute the cases. Give these folks that you see standing over here in the uniforms that credit. Give yourselves that credit. Okay? Because when you all start reporting crimes, because you know the uniform crime reports will always tell you, the stats are they're not completely accurate because these are just the reported crimes. There are many crimes that go unreported. There are many crimes. For every one, there's two. And believe that. The only reason why you have to find the murder cases is because the body's usually going to show up somewhere. But behind a whipping doesn't smell. You understand? So when you think about what is going on in Miami-Dade County, I'm not going to sit up here and blow smoke there. Because I know every single day when I walk in that courtroom and I see and I look at who's sitting up in the courthouse. And let me just say this, it looks like the Temptations in Menudo. Every single day. 7 floors. It's not just this, it's just us. Trust me on that one. We have too many septic sites. We have too many septic sites in our community. A septic site. How many people live on the block? If there's a vacant house that's boarded up, raise your hand. If there's a burned down house somewhere in your neighborhood, raise your hand. If there's a crack house in your neighborhood, raise your hand. You understand? Now, have this form over there on Brickell Avenue and ask those questions. Now, one hand will go up. The security of your neighborhood should not be dictated by your zip code. I really wish my opponent was here. I really wish she was so we could really have a true debate, but she's not. But there would be other forums. There's going to be some more forums, and I promise you this. You know, because I'm not going to take up the time, because I know you all have a lot of things to talk about, and he said it's going to end on time. I invite you all to Google me. Google me. Find out what I'm about. And that's just because the computers are telling you that. Come to the forums to hear what I have to say. You have my palm cards, call me. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. And I don't run from the hard questions. I will answer them. I am you. I grew up in the hood just like everybody else. All right? I don't live in no little ivory tower. I don't act like I've never been there because I have. But what I'm telling you is that it's about high time that you have somebody that's willing to come out here and fight for you willing to come out here and talk to you, somebody that you can reach out and touch when you need to talk to them. Somebody who is sincerely interested in making your community safer. Somebody who's not afraid to fight the hard fight, not afraid to make the hard decisions, and call a spade a spade. That's me, that's Rod Vereen. So when is that time for you all to go to the polls, my fellow Democrats? And those of you who cannot go, go tell your friends, the Democrats, that when you go to the poll, you punch 30 for Rod Vereen, your next state attorney. And I'll invite all you all out to the victory party. How about that? Thank you.
Now, although she couldn't be here herself, Ms. Rundle did send a representative from her office, and so I do want to invite up.
No, we don't want to.
Remember what I said at the beginning.
No.
So I want to bring up Don Horn, Chief Assistant State Attorney from the Office of the current State Attorney, Kathy Fernandez Rundle. We're going to give him an opportunity to represent his candidate's campaign, and then I'm going to bring up our forum.
Thank you, and good evening. I actually didn't intend to say anything this evening. I just wanted to come, but I wanted to at least give you the other side of the story and correct some of the misinformation that you've heard from Ms. Rundle's opponent. Let me first start by why she is not here. And I'm going to describe it like this. Somebody invites you to a party. They don't tell you they're having a party that you're invited to, and you've got something else to do, and at the last minute they say, okay, we know you're coming to the party. And that's what happened. She is presently with Tracy and Alonzo Mourning at an event for the Overtown Youth Center that she has been involved in since before that youth center opened. She has been committed to that center. It's about 5 minutes walking distance from our office, and that's why she is not here. That event has been on her calendar for several months. When this invitation initially went out, regrets were sent that she was not able to attend. For whatever reason, it didn't get to the right person, no changes were made. And then earlier this week, they says, of course, we expect you're going to be here. What are you talking about? We sent regrets. So that's why she's not here, because she has got something else to attend in Overtown, the area that I grew up in. So let me address some of the other issues that were raised by Mr. Vereen. One of the words that he used was a ploy, and he talked about the write-in candidates. Well, I'm sure that he's not going to tell you that the write-in candidates was not a ploy that was specifically used to shut out 700,000 folks in Dade County from being able to vote in the election of the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in Dade County, the state attorney. That has never happened before. What I'm sure he's not going to tell you, in fact, on this issue, the only reason why this ploy worked is not because of an opinion of a court, it's not because of an opinion of a lawyer, it's because of an opinion from a woman by the name of Katherine Harris, who you might recall from the recount in another election with somebody whose last name was Bush. Well, the constitutional amendment that was passed by the voters said, whenever this situation happens, we want everybody in the county to vote. Ms. Harris issued an opinion that said, no, the primary gets closed, and although she's not a lawyer, and although she's not a court, since she issued that opinion, that has been the reality for the state of Florida, and people have used it as a ploy to keep other people from otherwise voting in elections. Now, let me deal with some of the other statements that Mr. Vereen made. He talked about the crime rate. The statements that the state attorney has made publicly, privately, on our website, KathyFernandezRundle.com, all deal with the result from crime from 30 years ago to the present. And he can choose a time period as he did last year to this year. That's not the focus of the comment that was made. And the comment that she made was accurate. We've got the data to support it. In fact, the crime is at its lowest rate in 30 years, period, the end. And he makes the comment that the state attorney's office has nothing at all to do with that. Well, I'm assuming that he really has no idea what it is that we do in the state attorney's office, because he says, yes, the people in the uniform go out and arrest the people who commit the crime. That is correct. But I'm sure the lady standing over there in the uniform and the weapon is not a sworn attorney. She's not been designated by the state attorney as assistant state attorney, and she will not be going to court prosecuting a case. Our prosecutors do that. And when we get convictions of career criminals and take them off the street, that means you won't have folks breaking into your homes, you won't have folks snatching your purse, you won't have folks committing murders, robberies, and attempted rapes in our communities because we have taken them off the street. And the reason why we have been able to do that is because the state attorney has set up specific task force, like gang strike task force with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies specifically designed to get some of the worst offenders off of the street. It's because she has set up a career criminal gang that is specifically designed to get experienced prosecutors to go after some of the worst of the worst. And when we convict these people, they're carrying 10 or 11, 12 pending cases with them, and they're being sent away for 30 or 40 years. Now, he also talked about the fact that, yes, you go down to court, and a lot of those people look like most of the people in this room. And I'm going to say it because I'm black, and I grew up in Overtown, and that's my neighborhood, and I know what the reality is. One of the problems that we have is there is a problem with black-on-black crime in our community. There is a problem with black-on-black crime in other communities. We don't arrest people. They arrest people. They being the police. Whatever the pool is that we get arrested, that's the full pool we have to deal with to determine whether we got sufficient evidence to prosecute cases. And if we do, we file it, and we are seeking to convict those who are trying to harm folks in this community. On the other hand, she also has put on the cap where there are going to be some folks who are going to make some bad mistakes. And in the situations where you have a bad mistake, you've never had a problem with the law, you get arrested for something that's foolish. We've got a diversion program for you. You go through the program, do what you're told to do. We're going to drop your case. At the end of that, you can then get your record sealed and expunged, and we will help you get it sealed and expunged so you can get on with your life. And that's the kind of stuff that she does. You've got a violent husband or a violent wife, domestic violence. We created a domestic violence court to be able to assist those folks. Child support. You know, child support has been around. We're the only state attorneys in the office that's got a child support enforcement division, and they collected more than $115 million last year to be able to provide support for the children here in Miami-Dade County. Those are the kinds of things that she has done working here in this office. I am proud to be her chief assistant for administration. Unfortunately, part of my duties also requires me to serve as the counsel for the Miami-Dade County Grand Jury. I unfortunately see that, in fact, yes, we have a lot of African Americans who are coming through the system, and a lot of those folks who are committing first-degree murders look like me and are a third of my age. We've got teenagers who we are filing first-degree murder charges against because they're going out there robbing folks, sticking gun in folks' faces, and killing them. And that's the reality of the situation. And she is decided that she is not going to allow this. We are going to do what we can to make sure our communities are safe. I would encourage you on August 14th to make sure you vote for the most experienced state attorney. She has got 19 years as the state attorney. I think Ms. Vereen spent 16 months as an assistant state attorney in one of the counties up in Tallahassee. They got 40 people up there now. I'm hiring 40 people that are going to be starting in our office in August. We've got more than 300 lawyers, more than 1,200 employees, and there is no comparison between working in Tallahassee and running an office of 1,200 people. I asked you to vote for Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, Democrat, lifelong Democrat, and just as an aside, Ms. Rundle has never run as anything else other than a Democrat. Mr. Vereen, the last time he ran, when he ran against Frederica Wilson, he didn't want to run as a Democrat. He ran as no party affiliation, so I don't know why he did that, but Ms. Rundle has been a lifelong Democrat and has been able to enjoy the support of every segment of this community. In every election, she has gotten support from Haitians, African Americans, Hispanics, you name it. She's gotten it, Democrats and Republicans. I encourage you to punch 29 for Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, State Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to welcome up our panel. And first off, I think you grabbed my notepad. I'm nothing without my notepad. Great. So what we're going to do now is we've got a few community leaders who have come out to help us kick off this conversation about why this race matters. And so I'm going to introduce them and ask them to come up. First off, I want to introduce Nathaniel Wilcox, Executive Director of Pulse. Next, I want to bring up Brian Dennis, Director of Brothers of the Same Mind. Brian, come on up. And last but of course not least, Pastor Joaquin Willis, Pastor of Church of the Open Door, right here in Liberty City. So this is not just going to be you listening. This is the opportunity for you all to speak your mind as well. And we really want to center this conversation around what's at stake in the race and less about who you're supporting and really not about the candidates. We want to thank again Mr. Horn and Mr. Vereen for making those statements. We appreciate it. We can appreciate them. Give them some appreciation. Having to make last minute adjustments. So now we want to spend the rest of the evening having a conversation about what's at stake. So I'm going to ask you each to take about a minute or two to just say, and I really want you to talk from your personal experience, from where you sit, why you care about this race, why this race matters to you. You'll each have about 2 minutes to do that, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. The way we're going to do questions is if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to add, you can come take a seat in one of these rows. We'll take about 3 questions at a time. I'll synthesize, and then we're going to shoot it back to the panel. And then we have our interpreters. So if English is not your primary language and you feel more comfortable asking a question in your primary language, you can do that and we'll have the interpreters interpret. But this is the question mic. So if you have a question, you can come take a seat up here. And then after they give their opening statements, we'll take about 3 at a time. Everybody clear on that? Okay. So Mr. Wilcox, you want to get it started?
Yes, I'll get it started. My name is Minister Nathaniel Wilcox. I'm the Executive Director of Pulse. That's People United to Lead the Struggle for Equality. We are a civil rights organization here in Miami-Dade. Pulse is 30 years old. And Pulse was formed as a result of the civil unrest during the McDuffie era when Carl McDuffie was killed by Metro-Dade police officers. Many of the leaders came together to seek ways that we could improve our community, work together to deal with the issues of education, because just because he was killed was not the only reason for the riots. But we seek efforts and ways to improve education, discrimination, and many other ills that impact our community. One of the things that we deal with is police brutality. We deal with many issues, dealt with the state attorney, and bringing to the state attorney issues and concerns that we have in Miami-Dade. 9 times out of 10, we have not had an issue meeting with her, but we've had issues dealing with how she handles certain situations. What's at stake? There's a lot at stake. There's a freedom of many of our black elected officials, and I think I have to hit on this because there's a lot at stake. When our people elect people, and I'll use Michelle as an example, elect individuals that we feel is important to represent us, the state attorney's office should not be used as a vehicle to take away the people that we have righteously elected. Yeah. And go ahead and clap your hands. This is true. Listen, and I know Donna's going to disagree with me, but I'm still disappointed that Kathy is not here. She's running for re-election. I know she did the soft issue of going over town and meeting with Lonzo Mourning, but she should be right here answering the people that are here. She took the easy way out, called Lonzo Mourning's name like that's supposed to give her a pass. But anyway, let me go on. I'm gonna deal with this Michelle Spence. What's at stake? When we, like I said, when we have elected officials, the state attorney can be used and I'll say this again, used. It was a political move by the state attorney's office to prosecute Michelle on two separate occasions. The post organizations, number one, many of our other black elected officials were prosecuted. So we kind of trusted the state attorney's office on doing certain things, but we said for ourselves, let us look into this thing. We're not just going to allow the state attorney's office to do all the investigation. And like Don Horn said, they had 1,200 people working for Catherine Fernandez run the office. In our office, we have about 3 or 4. We did an investigation. We went to county offices. We pulled files. We pulled information. We didn't have the depth and the ability to do the things that Catherine Fernandez Rundle office had the ability to do. But after we pulled the information and we looked at it, we said the charges brought against against Michelle Spence-Jones were bogus. They were bogus. Okay? The first charge, the second charge, they were bogus. Now, why should the state attorney? Okay, she says it's time. But we'll deal with that a little bit more a little later on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take all your time.
Thank you, Brother Wilcox. Thank you, brother.
My name is Brian Dennis. I represent Brothers of the Same Man. We're an ex-felon organization that helps ex-felons getting out of jail or prison start their own business or help them find employment. We've been doing this since 1996. If you ever heard of the Restoration of Rights for Ex-Felons, our organization is the organization that started it along with help from Brother Wilcox, them organization, the ACLU, and many different people like that with the Pastors Association. And another thing we did was we created what we call the Community Workforce Program. That's a program to where we actually get jobs from the county and we put people to work that has no skill. And we train them to get a skill. And the cheapest job I ever sent somebody on was $14.74 an hour. No skill. So it's a program that goes year round. Just a few things to piggyback off Mr. Wilcox and something Don said that really touched me is this child support thing. It's a double-edged sword because on this form that when you fill out an HRS, it asks you, do you hereby attest and certify that all things are true? And if you read those forms and the state attorney's office actually goes through there, they're going to find a lot of fraud up in there. And you're going to find a lot of young black men like myself that has been victimized because the system is only built for a woman. Now ask me how I know. I'm a single parent of a 10-year-old daughter that has been with me since that day she was born. So, when you're looking at the demographics of child support and how this situation goes, don't get me wrong, sisters, don't get me wrong. There are some sorry men out there. There are some sorry men out there. But at the same time, there are some sorry men out there. There are some sisters that are deliberately deceiving. And you all can fill out that paperwork without a man knowing what's going on, and then by the time he figures out he done came to the mail and he about $10,000 in the real. If the state attorney's office actually did their homework on it, they'll see a lot of them sisters going to jail. Now, I'm going to close with this here before we continue on with the child support thing and why I'm so adamant about it. They're asking me to pay back child support from 1998 to 2008. And my daughter's 18 years old. What is missing from her record is 1994 to 1998, the first 4 years of her life. In other words, she was born with crack in her system. As a father, I'm in the hospital, don't have a clue there's stuff going on. The grandmother gets stuck with my daughter. I have no idea what's going on, and guess who's paying it back? So if they agree to that without my knowledge, that's a violation of my parental rights, and that's fraud with the state attorney's office. That those applicants should be arrested. Baby mama will not be damned. You cannot stick a man behind the 8-ball and ask him to take care of a child and then at the same time castrate him from being able to work, take his license, and keep him unemployed. It's a double-edged sword. One quick thing with something Mr. Wilcox said about these rest of the elected officials. A lot of them, and I wrote about Michelle about 2 years ago with this stuff. And everybody in our organization is an ex-felon. So we know how to dig and get ourselves out of jail if need be. The thing about it is, when you look at those charges and you go back and you read the stuff that was there was already in the state attorney's office. It was already there. And there's nothing, I'm not supporting anybody, this is an issue. If you have facts and you don't use the facts and you decide to use the facts when you feel like using the facts, then at the same time, that's not transparency. That's owing somebody a favor. And we know who owe favors in our community that other people walk and you castrate people at her expense. So that's not fair. And just to close on that, Lord knows we need something better than what's going on, whether Ms. Rundle stays there or whether Rod is there. We need equal justice, and that justice to be transparent.
First, I support what both these brothers have just said, and I guess I would just like to amplify for this audience. First, I moved here 10 years ago to pastor the Church of the Open Door. I grew up in Alabama, went to school in Washington, and when I moved here, Nathaniel, one of the things that I noticed is that, and I do agree with you about the situation with Michelle, but every city commissioner in District 3 was prosecuted. And unfortunately, while they were being prosecuted, the resources and the revenues that were earmarked for District 3 went somewhere else. So, District 5, let me get it right, get my district right. Because like I said, all I know is the people. Get the politics. And I'm not here because I'm a politician, I'm here because I don't like the injustice. And I think that, as you were saying, this is the city, District 5. But now let me go to the county. That's county, District 3, okay? And it's no different. And it's no different because whether it's city or county, we have seen through the state's attorney's office, our politicians encumbered so much so that they couldn't do their jobs. And that's one of the reasons I think this is important. As you know, Hashim, I was very, very vocal about having this forum. And I am very disappointed that Kathy is not here. Brother Horn, you can tell Reverend Willis that I am very disappointed. And I will say this. Well, let me say, as a pastor, I have a lot of things on my schedule that's been on my schedule for months. But when somebody dies or something happens that I have to call someone and say, you know what? I realize this is a formal invitation, that this is important, and I committed to it, and I'm very committed to the cause. But something just happened in the community that I have to go do. Right. Yes. This is one of those times. Yes. This is one of those times, and I think we all have these judgment calls. The other reason I think this is important is that I think Rob Arena said it very well. This is a historical race. Yes. Sometimes you just need change. Okay. Sometimes you just need change. I think that in the recent presidential elections, the attempt to say that the current president didn't have any experience did not carry any water. He got elected, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. Yeah. Now, I think the other reason this race is important is because if you are keeping up with the writings of people like Michelle Alexander, who's written the book New Jim Crow, what we see right now is the mass incarceration of almost all black people and people of color. And they're being arrested and they're being imprisoned for basically victimless crimes. Now the other piece of this is that in addition to the frivolous crimes that are being brought to the table on the politician, we see a lot of the victimless crimes for the brothers and the sisters in the neighborhood. And I hear you, my brother, about child support. It's a tricky issue. We do need to tighten it up. We got to figure it out. But the children need their parents around as much as they need the money. Yeah. They don't need them all in jail. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. But I really appreciate what Brother Nathaniel Wilcox said. I support that. And I need to say in his absence that when this situation with Michelle hit, it trickled over into the church when it hit my friend Gaston Smith. Right. Yes. It trickled over into other political camps. And I personally think that we wasted a lot of the taxpayers' money on all these issues of $25,000, $30,000, and we got millions that disappeared from our community. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Willis. Question? Okay, so so we've got one gentleman who has a point he wants to make. I just want to let people know seats are open. You got a question? Come take a seat. I'm gonna ask my question first, though. And this comes in from a lot of the feedback that we got. When we put out that we were doing this forum, we offered for people to send us questions, and it's no mystery. It's not. Everybody knows the impact that the criminal injustice system has on young people of color, particularly young black men. Brother Willis, you mentioned the book, The New Jim Crow. So this question is directed at you, Brother Dennis, because something that Mr. Wilcox mentioned was that a lot of the people they come in contact with, or I'm sorry, it was Mr. Horn who talked about the young age of people who get caught up in the system. So one of the things that a state attorney has the power to do is set protocols for what charges get brought on people. And Pastor Willis, you mentioned that oftentimes people are getting arrested and sent to prison, convicted of felonies for victimless crimes, that then carry on sentences that they spend the rest of their life trying to deal with. So I wonder for you, Brian, how have you seen this play out with the young men that you work with and organize with? What percentage of those would you say were relatively small, victimless crimes that, had they been sentenced with a lesser charge, they may be in a better place today?
Well, when you go back and look at how it was back then, you had people that were doing so many things that jail was almost like it wasn't almost, it was a revolving door. Just as fast as you get out, you would get in. Now, to Mr. Horn's credit, years ago we worked with the state attorney's office to go in and talk to direct file juveniles. And one of the things that he said was about these young brothers out here with these charges. That ain't no joke.
That's right.
That is not a joke. When you see these boys running, with these young boys, and some of these are our children, these 80, 90 babies that's running around here, killing each other, shooting each other, like it's going out of style. And when you look at trying to help somebody, here's the thing. Here's the thing about trying to find a job with somebody. Everybody said that once you go to jail, you're supposed to get a second chance. But depending on how bad the charge is, you have people second guessing you when you're looking at that application saying, I wonder if he'd do that to me.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? You're talking to an ex-felon. Right. Listen, I committed domestic violence one time and got charged with it 3 times. One time. And once a person knows your history, they can easily play it against you. An officer is not going to take that case lightly. But what I'm driving at is this here. You got what I call cuddling parents. And what I mean by that is, back in the day, they would buy their children heel figures and all that stuff, and they didn't earn it. They was giving this stuff to them. And as they continued to give it to them and they couldn't get it, they got on the corner. Now what you got to remember with these young brothers too is these crack babies.
Right, yeah. Right.
These are children that were born to people with crack, that their grandmothers raised them and the family structure has been broken. So when you look at that generation, it's almost a heartless generation.
Yes.
Because when you kill pregnant women, when you kill little children, and it just ain't, see, this is the thing with Liberty City. We get the most violent crimes. Because we got blue collar crime. Blue collar crimes are violent crime. You robbing, you stealing, you carjacking, you murdering to get what you want. You don't do white collar crime over here. You know what I'm saying? Income tax fraud, insurance scams. We ain't got time. We don't have that long to think like that. We trying to get it and live for right now. It sounds like I'm joking, but it's so serious. Because what nobody's paying attention to is the strip club is a new dope house.
Okay.
Go back, think about this. Go back into the early 2000s, the early 90s. The corners were full of dope boys. Go to the strip club. They full of young women. There ain't a strip club you can roll by that the parking lot is not full. So when you're looking at a generation and you trying to survive, you got young women trying to take care of babies, and you got young men that's being forced to do whatever they got to do, not just to survive for themselves, but to take care of these children that they out here making. So when we're looking at what's going on in our community, don't take these young brothers for a joke. Don't take what Mr. Horn said for a joke. Don't take what Rod said for a joke, because Rod defends a lot of these dudes.
Yes.
What we have to do is look at the situation for what it really is. There's a fork in the road, and we need to get each children a better decision on what to do. So in other words, when they do walk out of prison and they do walk out of jail to get that second chance, that what they went in there for, that is no longer there. I'm gonna close with this. This is what I tell guys that come to me that look for jobs. I always tell them, go get your record. Get your record and staple it to a job application. That can't tell that to me as an employer, I hire you quicker because you just showed me who you were. You just put everything on the table. It's when I have to go look for that stuff and I find it and I come back to the part of the application that I can say, you told me a lie.
Yeah.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony? You just want the job long enough. Once you do that, and once you find out what's happening, then you will understand where these young brothers going and these sisters going in life and how to circumvent that and stop the crime from going on in these communities.
And I also just add one about 15 seconds, just 15 seconds. But I think it's also important to point out that you talked about white collar crime, you talked about different color crimes. I think that all the crimes should be prosecuted equally. It shouldn't be the white collar crimes or the people on Brickell, they get off. Or they're connected with the mayor and they get off, versus the brothers who in Liberty City and Overtown, they're giving them maximum time. So that all we're asking for is to be treated equally. Not the mayor's buddy get off, or some of these other elected officials who are connected with the state attorney, they get off. Let's do it equally and fairly.
I want to say something not in favor of anybody. You know, I want to speak with justice. In April 8, 1910, somebody knows the alternative programs on Overtown that is directed by Georgia Ayers. It's a community leader. It's a very, very nice, big woman. His grandson and another boy from Overtown, me and my wife from Little Havana, was arrested for the last police chief Esposito and put it on jail. We feel the police brutality in our own skin. False arrest, accusation, we take money from the state and we spend the money. We never have a cup of coffee from the state, from any source of the government. We always work with the private sector and the people who help us in our neighborhood. Cathy Fernandez Rondel went to see Esposito in his face and said, "You a liar, you lied, and you have to release these people as soon as possible, because these people, they never make any mistake." Cathy Fernandez Rondel is a justice person. When she has to remove a politician, she don't care if it's Cuban or American or whatever, and everybody knows that. For me, I know that mistakes have been made, you know, in the program have been created, maybe the child support or whatever. But Cathy, I tell you really now, for Cathy I do whatever it is, you know. Cathy is a justice person. It's a person who works for justice equally for anybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Teray. I grew up on 65th and 17th. I'm only 19 years old. I've been on both sides of the field. As you can see, I have a rest in peace button on my collar, on my shirt. This is my boyfriend of 5 years. He was murdered in front of my house and in front of my stepson. His murderer got off. Also, again, I have a brother who was in the car at a time when robbery was taken, but he had iPhone, he had earplugs in his ear, and went to sleep. Everybody got arrested. My brother got 5 years. He can't get a job. I have sit in this community and watched everything happen from a little child. And now I'm afraid for my 10-year-old brother to go out, and he goes to Liberty City Elementary, and I live on 65th. And I'm scared for him because I don't know what's going to happen. Just Saturday, I lost a close friend of 10 years. Never said something to nobody, never did nothing, but over a gambling. On the corner. And what happened? Police came, write their little report, move on with life, left the blood on the sidewalk. Didn't even bother to clean it up. We, as the community, had to come out outside of our house, buckets of water and bleach to scrub up our own friend's blood. I'm tired of it happening, and for me to be this young, and I hear you guys talking about young people, I'm representing the young people, because I see it happen in my community, and it happened to me and my family. And I'm tired of it, and this is my first year voting, so that's why I'm here tonight, because I'm going to vote right. And I'm going to march these streets until something happens, until something changes. Everyone can sit there and say, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry to hear that. It's different when you hear it and when you see it. When you get in your house at 5:30, it's something in Brickell, maybe even Miami Gardens, it's peaceful and quiet. I live on 18th Avenue, Broadway Avenue. If anybody knows what that is, that's Crackhead and Drugway Avenue. My grandmother is a crackhead herself. I'm a victim of rape. So I know about systems of rape, and Mr. Vern was not lying about that. I have tracked it since I was 12, and I'm 19. I did the same thing about child support. My father abused my mother. I was abused by my father. So when I asked for child support, he said no. State attorney office did what? Nothing. I'm 19. And that happened when I was 12, and I still have not received child support for that, for anything that he has done for my family. So I'm here tonight representing black young people from Liberty City, from 65th and 17th, we're 18th. My church is on 15th and 63rd Apostolic Revival Center, so I'm in the heart of it. Freshman year, I had to bury my best friend, Brandon Mills. I had to bury my cousin, Derek, aka Termite, on the corner of a church where they got murdered at. So I am here tonight to voice my opinion and to ask all of you not to think of the robbery, but comes around August primary to make sure you do your part and you think about those around you and those who your child might be in contact with. Even though you might not have nothing happen to you, maybe your children are in school, you never know.
Thank you. So I think the young sister brings up a very real thing that many of us feel, which is a complete lack of faith in the justice system at all. Many of us, including myself, call it the criminal injustice system. So I wonder if you could each both, Mr. Wilcox and Reverend Willis, as pastors and people who minister to the community, what would you say to those of us who have lost faith in the criminal justice system and say, what's the point in the state attorney's race? What's the point?
Well, I'll start by saying that.
Just take about a minute on that.
A minute? Time. Okay. I think it's important that we, as a people, not sit back and be discouraged about what we see right now. We have further down the road to go. It's just like a person in college. You start the first year, it might be a little difficult. You have a few more years to go. We can't sit back and just be discouraged. We have to become active, just like you're out tonight. You're out here to hear and to know and to educate yourself about who's running and who's going to be the best individuals or candidates selection for our community. So it's easy. Anybody can sit under the tree and complain about how bad it is, but you have to get up off your rusty dusties, get out, be a part of this community, go to the candidates, be a part of NAACP, be a part of Pulse, be a part, do something. Don't just sit back and complain about everything. Because it's easy to complain, but you got to get up and work for your community to make sure you play a part, a role in making it better. So get involved with your church, get involved with NAACP, get involved with Pulse, so that we can make our community better.
Pastor Willis?
Well, I think you said that also very well. And to the young sister who spoke a few minutes ago, I know her pastor, Pastor Gilbert Smith. Pastor Smith and I have been working a lot together. And I just want to say to you that I think that you cannot only not get discouraged, that you have to understand that history is in the making. That God has got this. From my vantage point. God's got this. And what's happening right now, it's similar to something that happened in the 1800s when a black man decided to go into business to set up a coal business, and he was selling coal. Well, his competition on the other side of town, all of the other racial people, decided, well, they're going to put him out of business. So they drove their prices down. And as they drove the prices down, they were trying to drive him out of business. He decided, well, I'm going to go buy their coal since they done dropped their prices and I can't keep it. Well, so he went on and bought all their coal, and they sold it to him. They sold his coal, said, look, go ahead and sell it to him. We can get some more. He ain't going to be able to sustain himself. He's going to spend all his money buying the coal. The only thing that happened, though, they failed to understand that the winter came. He had all the coal, and that was the season that the river flows. The river froze, he got rich, and he fought and saved his business. He bought the first black African steamship line. So what happens now, and I'm telling you, don't get discouraged, because while it may seem to be hard, and it may seem to be rough, first thing we got to do in numbers is vote. We got to vote. And Democrats outnumber Republicans in Miami-Dade. You got two choices. Now you know what you need to do. And if we show up in numbers, the river's gonna freeze.
Thank you, Pastor Willis. So Pastor Willis, so it's been said twice now, we gotta all pledge to vote, right? Yeah. So we've got these commitment forms, and our organizers are gonna, if they haven't already, are gonna move through the crowd and pass these out to everybody. We have them in English, Creole, and Spanish. We want everybody tonight to pledge to vote. We need your contact information, because we don't just want you to vote, we want you to get out in the streets as well after you vote and make our voices heard. Like the sister said, she said she's gonna march until the job is done. And we know that just voting is critical. Voting is very critical. But if we know who we need to get into office, whether it's for the state attorney, for the county commission, or we know that we got people in our neighborhood who may not be as convinced as we are about the importance of voting, we got work to do to knock on some doors, to have some conversations, and make sure those around us are voting too. So there's an opportunity on here to make that pledge as well. So these are going to get passed through. Take a look at it. There's also a piece in the bottom for you to give a couple comments. We want people to have these on the front end so that you have time to fill them out before we close. So what I'm going to do now, we had a couple more questions. So we're going to hear those, and then we're going to take it back to you, gentlemen.
Well, I won't be before you long. My name is Yvette Duncan. But what I like to say, and everybody like to know, like this man said that he's a father and I'm a mother, and a lot of us mothers, we don't have people to help us. And when our children get in trouble, who do we turn to? Nobody from the office gonna call and say, hey, Ms. Duncan, we had your child up here convicted of killing somebody. Hallelujah. They gonna keep on pressing the charges on the black kids. You know what I mean? So how do we get to these people? This is my question. How do we get to these people? I done lobbied. I done been in Miami-Dade. I done work, and I done work hard, and I done taught the kids reading and writing before Bush got in office. So how do we get to these people in office? I keep telling them my son is innocent. He turned himself in during the week of 9/11. He went to the juvenile detention place. He turned himself in, and now he charged of murder. Tell me, how do you get to these people to tell them your child is innocent, not guilty?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jewel Parham. First I was an activist here in Liberty City. But to get to the question that I want to ask is, when you go to choose who you're going to select to be the state attorney, their past actions dictates what they're going to do in the future. When you have someone that says, tell someone who is innocent after 30 years of being in prison and through DNA was found not guilty or incel the charges that they had, and then that person come out and said that person is, in her mind, that he's still guilty, I'm serious. I don't need someone giving their own personal views on any case. They need to be going by the facts. So you pick who you want to pick.
Thank you.
That's right. Don't take it.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to commend Asheen and the panel for being here, and especially for each and every one of you, because believe it or not, you are the power. We are the power. Amen. First of all, I'm Elder Cleve Tucker, citizen of the United States of America. Talk to me, somebody. A voter in the county of Miami-Dade. Amen. I do thank everyone for this privilege and opportunity for being here. And I want to say to Brother Wilcox, amen, I commend you, amen, for what you're doing. And I too knew Arthur L. McDuffie. In fact, he was my staff manager. And the matter that surrounded his demise, it just shouldn't all have been. But I thank God for things being as well as they are. I want to say to Brother Brian Dennis, Godspeed, my brother, because we need to let our brothers that's incarcerated, that's coming out, know that there is a way out. Yeah. There's a way to be reintegrated into society. And we have to encourage them. Remember, we are not like Cain and Abel. We are one another's keeper. Amen. And finally, to Pastor, I thank God for you, for being the spiritual component in this forum, because it is much needed. And one thing I want to say, I've never seen black officers with white youth spread eagle on the ground like I see white officers with our black youth. Okay. It's time to stop this. Yes. I mean, it's just time to stop this. I mean, if you all have seen it, I've never seen it. And we got to realize we are all human beings. We all are worthy of being here. And remember, we have came from a mighty long way, people. I said we came from mighty long. My great-grandfather lived to be 117 years old. And he rode his bicycle around this town until he was 114. He married his fifth wife when he was 115. Talk to me, somebody. See, and I didn't have to see Ruth to know about slavery. He sat us down and talked to us about slavery, how they used to slaughter them like they did the hogs. Now, we are a great people. And I want you to know that. I'm talking about all of us, each and every one of us. And we are worthy, my brothers and sisters. And remember, we got the power.
Thank you, brother. All right. So I made a promise we would get out of here on time. So I think from a couple of the comments that I've heard, I think the last thing I want to ask you each to touch on, in 2 minutes or less, and we got a strict timekeeper, 2 minutes or less. I think, at the end of the day, whether we have a new state attorney or it's the same state attorney, the real question is around accountability. And there was a question about accessibility. And this issue of police brutality, this issue of equal justice is going to be there for us to contend with no matter who wins. So I want to hear from you all, what does accountability look like to you? And after we vote, how do we hold whoever's in that office accountable to the vision that we laid out on the front end that's outlined in this Florida Freedom Charter?
Accountability has to look like the law. It has to be blind, like Lady Justice. It has to be blind and the scales has to be balanced. If it's not blind and it's got a hoodwink on and it's looking out one eye they can see, that's not equal justice. That's not blind justice. And when you look at a lot of the transparency that goes on in the courtroom, and you look at a lot of these cases, they are bad cases. Don't get me wrong. We know we got kids out here doing stuff, acting like they grown. Ain't no secret about that. But when you hit these kids that don't do the violent crimes as if they are doing violent crimes, then that's almost like the crack sentence versus the soft cocaine sentence. There's a difference in it. In other words, like this here, as long as it's affecting from Overtown to Miami Gardens, it's all good. The minute it goes across the bridge to Hialeah, or it goes across the bridge, come across 7th Street to Little Havana, that's when everybody, it's an epidemic. As long as it's sustained in one community, it's no problem. But the minute the floodgates break open, it's everybody's problem now. That has to stop. When crime has no color, hope has no color. A dollar don't care about who hand is in or what race got it. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is, can you sustain yourself to live? Can you pay your bills? And can you grow your family to make your family survive? Those are the things that matter at the end of the day, because once that is over with, I make the judges us on what we've done here on earth.
Thank you, brother.
I think accountability is very important, and accountability comes at the voting booth. When we vote in or out the person who has been unfair, who's not doing their job, and that's what I'm really concerned about, making sure that 20 years, I think Catherine has been in there for 20 years, I think it's 20 years too long, and I think it's time for our community to really vote her out. Now, I'm going to ask Don Horn this. Don, do we still have our meeting next week with the State Attorney's Office? All right. We still supposed to have our meeting. But it's about accountability, holding her accountable, and she's gotten away, I feel she's gotten away with a lot of things, because she's a very charming person, she's a very likable person, but at the end of the day, has she been a fair person to all communities? And I say that she has not, and I think it's time for her to go.
Pastor Willis.
Well, I certainly agree with the first part of this, because the accountability model starts at the election booth. See, if you don't show up to vote, they walk in with a mandate, it's hard to get access then. So what happens is, if we show up in numbers and vote, even if she wins, for example, but if a strong turnout creates an election climate that says, you know what, you just barely got in office, then there will be a whole different change right there. Now, I think change is on the offering. And I think that by virtue of the fact that it's democratic, I think that, as I said a few minutes ago about the river freezing, well, the thing that is equal to river freezing now is that we want to hope that on August 14th that the sun is shining. See, because if it's raining, y'all ain't coming out to vote. But if the sun is shining, that's a sign that we got the time. Now, if the weather report is good, y'all know that it's going to be tough. You definitely need to be out there. If the weather report is bad, you need to do it anyway. And then remember this, people don't do what you expect. They do what you inspect. If you don't go in and inspect and meet with them and do what has to be done, there won't be no accountability.
Thank you all. Can we give our panel a round of applause? I just want to say, all three of these gentlemen found out about this request to come be on this panel today. And they stepped up because it was important to them, and they knew it was important to this community. So we're going to give you special love.
And I'm disappointed. I wanted to hear from both candidates. I didn't want to be here. I came with you when you were, because I wanted to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And the fact that, Alonzo Mourning had a bigger party bothers me.
It bothers me.
So we got one last pitch before you head out. So I want to bring up Naya Kaysen. Naya Kaysen from One Miami. For those of you who raised your hand and said, I like to hit the streets, she's going to come tell us about an opportunity next week to hit the streets, and then we're going to close out.
Good evening, good evening. I know the time is well spent, but I would like you all to look at your chairs and pull out this beautiful flyer here. This is very, very important. Who knows the minimum wage for the state of Florida? Here. 767 is what we're dealing with. So minimum wage has not been raised. It's only been raised 3 times in 30 years. Wow. It has not gone up with inflation. It has not gone up with everything, with groceries, gas.